So my girlfriend's here at the donut shop here in Shafter, California. It's 4:20 in the morning and the cops are here. Pulled somebody over at the donut shop. Anyway, we are heading out to Owens Valley. This is the beginning of our Owens Valley expedition. So we're off to the Owens Valley. Oh God, this is the best. We've got our donuts, we've got our high-powered coffee, and we are heading out. It's going to be awesome. Well, hopefully it'll be awesome. And right now I'm driving the back way to the highway because I don't want the sugared up cops that were just at the coffee shop to feel bored or excited or anything, so I want to stay out of their way. Because you know. Because you just know. I'll check in later. Lots of wind today, and here we are in the Alabama hills, but from what I understand there's wind blowing all through the valley today. So that was the Alabama hills. I have to do the audio portion in the car because it's so windy outside. So a note of caution, if you get into the tablelands, bring a four-wheel drive, have big tires, put it in four-wheel drive low, and creep. Have a spare and creep. If you just have a passenger car or something like that, I don't care what anyone's told you, don't use it, don't come up here. Bring four-wheel drive, lots of ground clearance, big tires. This is an excursion. Okay, we're up in the Volcanic Tablelands proper. The view is spectacular. It is an amazing place. It's just amazing. We are on the hunt for the Rosetta Petroglyph. It's got to be around here someplace. So here we are at Rosetta, here in the Volcanic Tablelands. This site has been designated by the UC Berkeley Department of Archaeology as INY-268. Pretty sure the 268 must be how many miles they walked to find this thing. But everybody calls it Rosetta. And it is amazing. The rock itself is made of red pumice. Geologists call this type of pumice Bishop Tuff, T-U-F-F. And this petroglyph uses the same curvilinear drawing style that's found all throughout the volcanic tablelands. I'm going to highlight a few of the specific areas to draw your attention to. This here looks like could be a medicine wheel. It also looks kind of like a compass. Now that's me today thinking it looks like a compass. But the reason why I'm thinking it possibly could be that is kind of positioned accordingly to north, south, east, west right now. It's a little bit off, but that could have been because there's been a lot of jostling in this area because of earthquakes, soil erosion, a number of reasons. And I can kind of forgive the artist for not having it dead certain. Pretty sure the artist didn't work for NASA. On the circumference of the petroglyph is a line, a solid line. And in this back area, there are 20 lines radiating out from it. We can only guess what those 20 lines mean. The number of years that the artist lived, number of fish he caught, we don't know. This other large circular area, this could be the sun. You see a lot of irradiating lines coming off of it, the top and the bottom. Bird tracks are present all over the stone, namely here and here. In this area here, curiously, it looks like a six-fingered hand to me. A couple of other drawings on this particular petroglyph you see all over the volcanic tableland. You see circles and ovals like this one here, and this one down here, with a line drawn longitudinally across it, the length, either with a circle or an oval, it's always drawn the length of it. There's a lot of things we really can't identify on this petroglyph. There's this figure here. It's like several lines radiating out from a center. This here we have a circle with a line drawn downward. And we have another similar chiseled petroglyph here with lines going out in several directions. Could these be, I don't know, star explosions? Maybe the artist saw a meteor and he said maybe somebody should write that down. We also see what could be another drawing of a human here, but where the head was started to be chiseled, there's a piece of the rock missing. And it looks like, since there's a natural crack in the rock going in this direction, it intersects where the head could be, and it just could be natural erosion. I don't think it's been defaced. One last unusual item is this right here. It kind of looks like a arrow, but that's me layering my culture and my society on this petroglyph. Anthropologists have properly credited this petroglyph to the Mono people. The Mono people inhabited this area for thousands and thousands of years. And all of these petroglyphs carry a certain cultural theme if you're looking at it from an artist's point of view. And they're all spectacular. Of all of the places I have been in the tablelands, this is one of the first sites that I've seen, that I found, that has not been marked by vandalism. And that's why a lot of these sites remain secret. I'm not telling you how I found out about it. I'm not telling you where it's at. Don't even bother asking. If you really want to know where this place is at, go to grad school. Become an anthropologist. This piece of pumice probably weighs around 20 tons. It is huge. But this was created about 8,000 years ago. 8,000 years. Somebody stood right here, and with a really dense rock in one hand, chiseled into this rock face. All of these designs. This isn't scratched, this is chiseled. Some of the petroglyphs in the volcanic tableland area, I've seen them go as deep as a quarter inch, maybe a half inch, chiseled into the rock face. Now the reason the lines are bright and the underlying rock is dark, it's a process called desert varnish. A lot of pumice in the volcanic tablelands are dark colored, some almost approaching black. Why that is, Over time, the pumice reacts with the air and turns it darker. Now this darkening process lasts thousands of years. It takes thousands and thousands and thousands. More than 12,000 years in some cases for it to blacken all the way. So you can still see that, even though this was chiseled out 8,000 years ago, you can still see it because that process of desert varnishing is still taking place today. So we're leaving Rosetta and we're heading back to Bishop, and we're going to enter into another way to get into the Volcanic Tablelands. And I think we can have a pretty good chance of finding the next one. Here we are at the Bishop Petroglyphs here in the Volcanic Tablelands of Southern California. This site is designated as MNO5 by University of Berkeley's Department of Archaeology way back in 1965. This site is very well preserved, and if you've got to get one site to go visit, if you only got time for one site, this is the place to do it. The tablet behind me is probably the most remarkable at the archaeology site. It is very well preserved. It is absence of any graffiti or defilement or damage. There are rocks in this area that have been desecrated and have been vandalized. Very sad to see. In this rock you can see images of humans. You see what could be a lot of medicine wheels, or what with the circles with the vertical and the horizontal stripes in it. I think there may be some snake motifs. Bugs. Bugs! Other areas of the site, you have what I think are elk. You have a lot of other geometric drawings here at the site. There's the famous block of squares, which looks like somebody really wanted to be a spreadsheet engineer 8,000 years ago, but I'm not sure why he would want to go that route. There's also a lot of, looks like chiseled handprints. There could be some lizard motifs, beetle art, maybe. Again, a lot of this is not very objective, it's very subjective, and we're looking at it from a 21st century point of view. We have to go back 8,000 to 12,000 years in some cases and put ourselves in their shoes before we can ever try to understand what some of this imagery, these petroglyphs, mean. I would say, you know, the site MNO5 is probably one of the most important in the Volcanic Tablelands, if for no other reason, the variety of imagery in such a small geographic footprint. I mean, throughout the valley, there's rocks strewn everywhere. And I don't know if anybody, including UC Berkeley, has ever been able to catalog them all. Let me just pan across the valley and I'll show you what I'm talking about. There's rocks everywhere. The canyons are just full of rocks. And these are sizable boulders here on Fishlaw Road. And this is just one little tiny little bit of the huge, vast space that's the Volcanic Tablelands. I think this is an older site because clearly there's a lot of carvings here that the desert varnish, the oxidation process, has already occurred. But on some surfaces, like at sundown, you can see some shapes still in the rock. So you see different images with different levels of brightness. Like these are very bright. There's some over here it's dim. So they may actually be older. So this wasn't, I don't think, created all in one day. This site here, the carvings on here, could have been created over a period of thousands of years. Why was this site so popular? Who knows? Is this a major game trail? Is the carving of maybe an elk up there a sign of this is a good place to hunt elk? And this is part of the migration route still of elk. here in Southern California. So this site is well preserved. It has been defaced. It has been vandalized. I can't even show you on YouTube what it is. But if you do come up here, don't vandalize the artifacts. Don't mess with them. Don't do anything. The imagery here still follows the curvilinear style of all the carvings within the tablelands. Anthropologists believe that the Mono people should be properly credited for creating all of these petroglyphs here and all across the volcanic tablelands. This is obviously the work of a singular culture, and it should be honored as such. This is SciWorx. This is site number INY-334, as cataloged by UC Berkeley's Department of Archaeology. And it is glorious. I can't back too far away from the camera. I'll end up in a pit. It's a very, very difficult place to get to. I think we're hour 2 on foot, lugging camera gear. And I'm a big, sweaty, fat guy. It was a challenge. It took a lot of sleuthing to figure this one out. For obvious reasons, nobody really publishes the locations of the crown jewel petroglyphs here in the volcanic tableland. And I think it's kind of obvious why. All the other petroglyph sites we've visited, they all show signs of vandalism. Heather, no one really cares who you're dating. Heather, you scratched your name along with your boyfriend on a rock over 8,000-year-old petroglyphs. If you wanted to come and see these for yourself, you can't because of Heather and her stupid boyfriend. There's just, I don't even know where to begin explaining to you the magnificence of SciWorx. It is in the same curvilinear style of all the other petroglyphs in the volcanic tablelands. Anthropologists have correctly credited this petroglyph and the other ones in the volcanic tablelands to the Mono people. These petroglyphs, this one here, probably around 8,000 years old. 8,000 years old. This one here is 8,000 years old, Heather, and I hope you never find it. From some of the photos I was able to get, the SciWorx is full of all sorts of symbolism. Squiggly lines, things to us that look like spaceships, circular patterns that we find, concentric circles that we find all over the tablelands. If we're grading these on a scale from 1 to 10 in terms of all the petroglyphs in the volcanic tablelands, this is an 11. The Mono people, they turned it up to 11 when they created this. Astonishing to see it. From here we can see animal motifs, maybe sketches of people. I can't even explain it. 8,000 years ago, somebody crouched under this rock here and sketched all this. Well, I shouldn't say sketch. These are chiseled. You can't just scratch some drawing into this. You have to chisel it in. There is, of course, no climbing on the rock. However, that is not stopping the lizard. I don't know if you can see it on camera. There's a lizard right down here that's trying to scamper his way up. There's no food down there. I don't know what he's looking for. Right now, he's to the right of the sign. You can probably see the sign over here. He's just chilling. But of all the examples of prehistoric art, this one takes the cake. It gets all the cake, it gets the cupcakes, it gets the birthday punch, it gets everything. So this is the last petroglyph video from our Owens Valley field trip. This last one is 13 moons. And previous to this, we had been running all over the desert with our big, all that heavy camera gear, taking all these videos in the burning hot desert. But these places, every place we went to, they have a really deep spiritual vibe. And once you see them enough, you really get an emotional connection to them. And you see where the Mono people were at 5,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. And you realize that wave upon wave of foreigners from the Spanish conquistadors, the United States government pushing westward all the time, looking for gold. Everybody was looking for gold. And you realize, after you've been to enough of these places, these sacred sites, it dawns on you what they already had, their culture and their knowledge of the land and of the earth, was much more valuable than any gold that's ever been found in North America. And after that journey through the desert, it was very emotional. So I'll just let it play out, and I hope you enjoy it. And this is 13 moons. According to UC Berkeley's Department of Archaeology, this is site INY 436 in the Volcanic Tablelands. This is one of the more extraordinary petroglyphs here in the Tablelands. This one is called 13 Moons, of course, because we believe this is astronomical in detail. You see the 13 prominent circles. There are 13 full moons per year. Now, our calendar only has 12 months, but there are actually 13 full moons in a year. The ancient Egyptians knew it. Celtic Druids knew it. The Aztecs knew it. The Mayans knew it. And there's no reason to believe that the Mono people that settled these lands tens of thousands of years ago, no reason to believe that they didn't know it too. This rock has a lot of symbolism in it, not as much as other petroglyphs in the Tablelands. We can see down at the bottom the common oval with the horizontal line through it. We see a common squiggle of a snake along the bottom. We see another circle with a cross. And like the other petroglyphs that have the similar circle and cross, kind of laid out, they kind of mark the directions, north, south, east, west. Not exactly. We also have to consider soil settling over the last 8,000 years, which was when this thing was chiseled out, or thereabouts. But regardless of how accurate it is down to the 10th of a degree, for 8,000 years ago, it is magnificent. Let me call your attention to some of the other features on this petroglyph. We also see over on the left, it could be a star, the sun, with the irradiating rays coming out from it. Above the sun is an odd collection of dots. The dots are 8 across, and between the 6th and 7th, above it is a row of 3 dots. Right off the top of my head, couldn't tell you what that means. The central glyph in this petroglyph is this boxy figure. It spans nearly the top to the bottom. Could be a tribal mask. It could be the map to someone's village. Attached to this central glyph is another circle that could be a moon. It could be a map. It could be the ceremonial dwelling of the village. Some of the moons have a different motif than the others. Starting from this end, let's say that's 1. Number 10 has spikes coming off of it and ends in something that looks like a bird foot, bird track. The next one over has, in the upper right-hand quadrant, has spikes or rays emanating from it. In the lower left-hand quadrant, we see 3 different circles. Now, is the 3 different circles connected to that moon, the 12th moon? Or is it connected to the big tall motif in the left center? In the upper cluster of the moons, we can see in the center motif of a human. Is he carrying a bow, arrows? Is he carrying a shield? Is he carrying snakes? On the far right, we can see part of a bird foot. In the upper, very top, right-hand quadrant, we see a box with crisscrossing lines. We see similar motif of crisscrossing lines near the center, but it's not a box, it's a line with the crisscrosses attached to the bottom line, right above the 10th moon. Truly a remarkable sight. One other thing I want to point out about the different glyphs on the petroglyph, right below the, if you can see, the sun is like this arc with like this other circle with different lines drawn out from it. Is it a meteor that exploded? Don't know. Is it a spiky porcupine with a very long tail? Is it something that's already gone extinct? I don't know. But whatever it is, it's priceless, not just in monetary value. It's priceless in what it says about human culture. 8,000 years ago, this was carved with a knowledge that there's 13 full moons in one trip around the sun. There's not a lot of students graduated from high school that can tell you that. An absolutely remarkable sight. Anthropologists rightfully credit the Mono people for creating not just this petroglyph, but all the petroglyphs in the Volcanic Tablelands in the Owens Valley. Remarkable, remarkable culture. To do this such a long time ago. And think about it, they didn't discover that there were 13 full moons in a year the day they painted this. This was already ancient knowledge handed down from generation to generation to generation, long before somebody came up here and carved it. The thing that it makes me wonder, for me, the lesson of the Mono people, to me, with this right here, is if it wasn't for war and religious fanaticism like the Dark Ages, if we knew about this 8,000 years ago, where would we be today? How many times did we set ourselves back because of prejudice and bigotry and a lust for power? Paraphrasing Carl Sagan, for temporary control over one tiny speck of one small blue dot suspended in a sunbeam. That's the lesson that the Mono people have taught me. That's the lesson. That's the lesson the Mono people taught me. And I hope it's a lesson you get from this too. So that's it from 13 Moons, site number INY 436, here in the gorgeous Volcanic Tablelands of Southern California. Here's a little bit of automotive history for you. The things you find on the side of the road. Am I right? I can't get over it. A major piece of automotive history. People just drive by and they have no idea about the importance of this little place up on this mountain, 7 miles back, around 10,000 feet, had for automotive history. It was the Champion spark plug mine. 1916, there was a guy named Dr. Joseph Jeffrey. He was a dentist. He's looking for materials for new dentures. Well, he discovered a big deposit of andalusite. Andalusite is the main ingredient for vitreous ceramic. And as we all know, vitreous ceramic is a fancy way of saying spark plug ceramic. So in 1916, mules carrying 100-pound bags of ore was brought down this mountain from 10,000 feet all the way down to this road, and then it was put on trains that went to Detroit, Michigan, where it was processed and made into spark plugs. Millions of spark plugs from 1960 on. At the birth of the T model. Would the T Model Ford even have been able to be successful without the massive amount of andalusite that came off this mountain? Ask yourself that question. Would it have been? Do you commonly just go out into the middle of the desert and find a big site full of andalusite? A big seam of it? I don't think so. So this is a unrecognized, I feel, historical place for automotive history. Right up there. Right up there. And from 1916 forward, andalusite poured out of this mountain, shipped to Detroit, Michigan, where it made millions of spark plugs. How many T-model Fords were manufactured with spark plug materials coming from this mountain? The mind boggles. And here's the teeny tiny marker that's dedicated to Dr. Joseph Jeffries. And his remarkable discovery of andalusite for the vitreous ceramic that goes into spark plugs. Who knew? So that's a little piece of automotive history I bet you didn't know about. Welcome to the Owens Valley Radio Observatory. Let's get to it. Today, we're going to talk about radio astronomy. Behind me is the Owens Valley Radio Observatory here in Big Pine, California. It's jointly operated by the New Jersey Institute of Technology and Caltech. But what does all of this do? What's it for? A lot of you, I'm sure, have taken binoculars or just laid up and looked at the stars and were awestruck of some of the things you've seen. Maybe some of you have seen a meteor coming in and leaving a trail behind. All of that you see is in the visible light spectrum. It's the stuff that your eyeballs can see. There's so much more coming out of the sky than just visible light, stuff you can't see. And that's what these instruments are for. These instruments are built and they're made to monitor, literally, signals from outer space. They can find quasars, some of them do X-ray observations. The whole night sky looks completely different if you could see X-rays. The night sky would look completely different if you could see different wavelengths beyond what your eyes can now. So what these telescopes do is they focus on a specific point in the sky and they track that point slowly across the day, listening, and recording the things that they hear. I'm not sure what they're doing out here in Owens Valley today. They may be monitoring or listening to quasars or pulsars. They may be listening to black holes. They may be trying to do something about dark matter. And the cool thing about this radio observatory, it is the largest in the world that's operated by a university. You may have seen this particular scope at the movies. This is where Charlie Sheen was running around the desert trying to tell the world about aliens. This is where he played Zane in the movie Arrival, right here. And then the little kid popped into the end of the film. The little kid popped his knees backwards and ran off into the desert. This is the desert he ran off into. Some of the instruments here at Owens Valley include the COMAP, which is the carbon monoxide mapping array pathfinder. I don't know if you can see it or not, but off in the background, this valley is full of radio telescopes. There's this one here, then there's a really big one in the background you can see. Then there's 2, 3, 4, I mean there's more than a dozen telescopes. They're all probably part of different experiments. Also here is the expanded Owens Valley solar array. We can actually use radio telescopes to actually listen to the sun, not just look at it, but we'll listen to it. We can hear things like solar flares and surface disruptions. Now, one thing that's here in Owens Valley is the Owens Valley Long Wavelength Array. Somewhere out here, it consists of 288 dipole antennas, and it's spread out over the desert. It's equivalent to 450 football fields of listening space. And what it does, it produces whole sky images. And if you wanted to create an image of the whole sky from a radio point of view, if you want to listen to the whole sky, then you'd use something like this. And I know a lot of ham radio guys, they set up their own dishes to see what they can listen to. If you're interested in radio astronomy, and look up some of the ham radio resources on the internet for radio astronomy. And maybe you can build you a small antenna out of scrap and see what you can listen to. There is all sorts of stuff coming from the heavens that is fascinating. And the next big discovery could come from you. Do not discount your importance to radio astronomy if that's something you want to go into. You don't have to have one of these big things to make an impact. These make it easier, but you don't have to have this. You can do it from your own backyard. Behind me is a deep synoptic array. And I really couldn't tell you which of these little dishes is the deep synoptic array or which ones they are. I think they're the 15-footers. You may not be able to see them, the way in the back. I'm not even sure I can see them from here. And what they're using those for is for fast radio bursts. We're not really sure what a fast radio burst is. They're very, very interesting. Some people believe they're evidence of alien life. Some believe they are some sort of artifact from an unknown cosmic structure that we have yet to discover. Are these fast radio bursts the birth of black holes? Are they the death of black holes? Is this something to do with dark matter? We just don't know. But I'll include some links here in the show notes about the observatory here, the different programs going on here, and fast radio bursts. They're very fascinating. Personally, all the things that's going on here, the fast radio bursts are the most interesting to me because they're so rare and we don't know what they are. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we don't know what it is, but this has, I believe, the potential to really, there's some sort of knowledge breakthrough there concerning the fast radio bursts. And I think we really need to keep going and seeing what these phenomena are, because I'm sure it'll lead to something else. They're always random. They're always someplace out in the sky. They're never in the same spot. At least I don't believe we found the same burst in the same place. They're always someplace else. So it kind of leads us, maybe it's some other phenomenon, like maybe a black hole is created or a black hole dies, maybe. Or it could be aliens trying to get a dial tone. I don't know. Maybe they've got their galactic modem and that's the ringtone for it. I don't know. And so let me give you a little bit of my history concerning how I became fascinated by radio astronomy. I grew up in West Virginia, and every weekend my grandparents, they'd take some big long drive on the weekend. We'd find little hiking spots, little state parks. And we were riding around, didn't know where we were going, we're just cruising, exploring. And we came across this hilltop. And we came across this sign that said, "Turn off all radios." And as we reached the top of the summit, there in the valley below were dishes that looked just like this. Some bigger. They were amazing. And it was the Green Bank Radio Observatory. In, I think, one of the nation's only quiet zone. There's no Wi-Fi. You can't have cell phones. There's no radio at all in this valley in West Virginia because it is so sensitive. If it was today, I couldn't take my camera into Green Bank to videotape it. I'd just have to take still photos with a film camera to take the shots. That is how sensitive the signals are that they're listening to in Green Bank. You know, my head exploded as a child. And, oh my God, we gotta go, can we go, oh please go. They relented because I kind of, they just didn't want to hear me cry all the way home. Went into the facility, we got on the bus and we took the tour. We rode around the grounds. And the tour guide was telling us about, oh, this radio telescope does this. And over here is the dormitory for the scientists. And over here is a baseball field. And there's like deer running through the baseball field. So we get to the visitor center, and there's a film. They're going to show us this film in the visitor center. And this guy with this really distinctive accent shows us a little film about SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And this guy with a real peculiar accent told us about how aliens could be listening to all of our radio waves. Everything that we've put out, if it has a sufficient enough power, escapes the electromagnetic field of Earth and can travel through space. It goes on forever. Now the signal gets weaker, but it continues. And then he flipped it. He says, what if we can hear the radio signals of an alien civilization? At this point in time, I had already turned my bedroom into a laboratory. I had all sorts of electronic projects. I was already into ham radio. It was, I was one of those kids, right? And it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind. And remember, we had just landed on the moon a few years before my visit to Green Bank. It was just astonishing that there could be signals, not just signals from the sun, quasars, pulsars, nebula, whatever, but there could be alien civilizations with their version of I Love Lucy, And I was just stunned. And so, of course, the little geek in me, head exploded, and I was just fascinated. So I really started researching more, reading more as I could about radio astronomy. I went to the local college library, Concord College in Athens, West Virginia, and started reading up on radio signals and radio astronomy as much as I could. My head was just literally on fire. Maybe a year or two later, there was this show called Cosmos. And I was there, I was all geeked out. I actually had a cassette recorder all hooked up with my microphone at the TV speaker. I had my little notepad, I had my pencils, had a pencil sharpener and eraser so I could take notes during the broadcast because that's the kind of nerd I am. You have no idea what it's like to go through life like me. So here I am, pencil to paper, ready to download the knowledge of the universe on my notepad. And here comes that distinctive accent. Talking about billions and billions of stars in the universe. The guy at Green Bank that showed me the SETI movie that blew my mind was none other than Carl Sagan. It was Carl Sagan! If I had only knew then, it was Carl Sagan at Green Bank lecturing me on SETI. Mind blown again. I will say this, that guy was an amazing science educator. He was amazing. So of course, little geek me bought every book he had, would continue to buy every book he published. There are a lot of people that try to follow in his footsteps, and I'm grateful to all of them, but man, oh man, Carl Sagan was King Mo-D. And Carl Sagan is why I'm here today. If it wasn't for Carl Sagan, I would have just drove by, oh, it's some military thing, with no interest. But Carl Sagan lit my head on fire concerning radio astronomy. And that's why what they're doing, whatever they're doing here at the Owens Valley Radio Observatory, is vital to science. Absolutely vital. And I encourage you to get involved. Even if it's a hobby, even if it's just a little hobby experiment. You can find an old dish, hook it up to a Raspberry Pi and start recording data. You will probably not know what you're listening to, but you can find out. You can learn what you're listening to. And I guarantee you, it will astonish you. Welcome to the Ancient Bristlecone Pine Forest here in Inyo County, California. These trees, there's nothing else like them anywhere but the American West. We are about 10,000 feet above sea level, and behind me is a really glorious representation of what a bristlecone pine is. The oldest one here in California is called Methuselah. Methuselah, I've got it written down here just so I wouldn't forget, is believed to be 4,851 years old. 4,851 years old. It is the oldest living tree, single stem, single root tree on planet Earth. Methuselah is not behind me. On a previous expedition, I found Methuselah. I'm never going to publish the pictures. I'm never going to tell you where it's at. If you want to know where Methuselah's at, become a park ranger or go to grad school and study biology. Sadly, because of vandalism and arson, its location has to be protected. So how do we know it's 4,851 years old? There's a branch of science called dendrochronology, which is the study of tree rings. Dendrochronologists do more than just study and count tree rings. Tree rings can tell you a lot about the ecosystem hundreds and now thousands of years back. You can take each sliver of tree ring and find out what the atmosphere was like. You can find all sorts of things about the environment many years ago just by analyzing tree rings. Now, it's very difficult to do with bristlecone pines because the tree rings are very, very thin. You have to count them under a microscope. And at that point, still, it's difficult to count. I've seen one sample. I swear to you, some of the tree rings are about as wide as a human hair. It's truly remarkable. The soil here is dolomite. Bristlecone pines thrive in this really alkaline soil where nothing else can. They're not really threatened with overcrowding of other invasive species because nothing else is going to grow here. They kind of got the mountaintop to themselves. Other remarkable things about these trees, and the reason they live so long, they can survive high elevations, wood-boring insects, erosion, sleet, snow, freezing temperatures, and keep going. They can actually also survive fire, like the one behind me. You can see the bark is exposed. At some point in its time, it was actually on fire. But it takes a couple hundred years for a bristlecone pine to start growing again. It's still alive, even though it was caught on fire by a lightning strike or whatever. It's still alive because it's so dense. And because they grow so slow, it may take centuries for new leaves to appear. Very hardy plants. Most people call these Great Basin bristlecone pines. They have some other names: Intermountain bristlecone pine, Western bristlecone pine. John Muir called them magnificent. John Muir stood in this forest and was amazed by the beauty he saw around him, as he did other things in the Sierra Mountains of California and Nevada. The bristlecone behind me is old. It's not Methuselah old. Let me give you kind of a time scale. The tree here, I would guess this tree is about 3,000 years old. It was well out of the sapling stage before Plato wrote Republic. Let me say that again. This tree is older than Plato's Republic. And all the trees behind me, same story probably. This tree, the Roman Empire rose and fell during the lifetime of this tree. It's still here. The Roman Empire is not. My money's on the tree. There are thousands of such trees. Before I fall, let me get a better foothold. You have to make the trip out here to the Ancient Bristlecone Pine Forest here in Inyo County, California. If you do not underestimate the environment here. It is 10,000 feet above sea level, and even though it may be 75 degrees, 80 degrees today, to make this entire circuit, it's a 5-mile hike. Lots of up, lots of down, lots of up, lots and down. Wear very sturdy boots, bring lots of water, food, Gatorade, whatever for electrolytes. It is a strenuous hike. When we came through it last year for the first time, it took us forever. It took us a long time. Now, it wasn't because the hike was that strenuous. It's because we were taking so many pictures. By the time we were done with our hike, we had taken 78 photos per mile. Per mile. We stopped every few feet to take photos because there's always something absolutely magnificent to see. This one, gorgeous. Thousands more just like them. All uniquely gnarled, all uniquely barked, and all uniquely a treasure. When we come on this hike today, just to do the videos, we pinky swore to ourselves, okay, no pictures, no more pictures. We're not going to take any pictures because we just have to get through it and do the video. But isn't it amazing? Is it just not amazing? And that's the end of our Owens River Valley expedition. We've had a great time out here. We've been chasing down petroglyphs in the Volcanic Tablelands, Death Valley National Park, Manzanar Japanese Internment Camp Historical Site. There's the Ancient Bristlecone Pine Forest. There's the Owens River Radio Observatory, and some amazing trout fishing, all here in the eastern Sierras of Southern California. I encourage you to make the trip. And in the mountain range behind me are other wonders. There's Yosemite National Park, Kings Canyon National Park, and Sequoia National Park, all in that range of mountains behind me. There's a lot to see and do here in the eastern Sierras. The world's oldest tree, the world's biggest tree, the nation's lowest point, the nation's highest peak in the lower 48, all here in the eastern Sierras. I hope you like this video. If so, give it a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel, please subscribe. If you got any questions, drop those in the comments below. And until next time, I'll be your lab partner. Take care. Bye-bye. And just as a side note, if you decide to come hiking in the Ancient Bristlecone Pine Forest in the high Sierra Mountains at 10,000 feet, don't wear a dress. For the love of God, past 2 hikers wearing dresses. One was flip-flops. Yeah, it is laughable for what's so sad. Do we just not take hiking seriously anymore here in America? Dresses. She could have gone to church. She could have been coming from church. All the service is over. Let's go hike 5 miles into the upper hard granite of the Sierra Mountains. Let's do that. It'll be so much fun. Oh my gosh. I can post my bloody feet on Instagram. I mean, fucking 2 of them. One is like, okay, an idiot. But 2, you got to make a video about it, right?
Seen it all.
We're not down to the parking lot. We don't even know what we're going to see yet. Good God. And one was a white dress. White dress. She's never getting the stains out of that one. Throw that one away. Did I leave anything out?